Welcome back to the Flow Performance Podcast. My name is Ricky Dan, founder of Flow Nutrition and your host. On today's episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with ultra runner, entrepreneur, health and wellness enthusiast, and a good mate of mine, Jordan Chen. We answer this week's crazy question: what's the go with running 33 marathons in 33 days? Now, Jordan is a seasoned ultramarathon runner with multiple ultra races under his belt, including even having a crack at a 200-mile race last year. He's also an active entrepreneur who is building and operating multiple businesses, not only on the Goldie, but throughout Australia and globally. He is a health and wellness enthusiast with a love for combining ultra endurance and strength training, and is one of the most impressive and most consistent hybrid athletes I know. I always speak about nailing the basics first before worrying about the one percenters, especially when it comes to health, wellness, performance, and recovery. And I think Jordan is one of the only people I've ever met who nails the basics whilst also nailing all of the one percenters every day in each one of those avenues. I truly look up to the way he prioritizes his mental and physical health over everything else, his personable approach to building relationships in business, and his general focus on fostering human connection in his life. I've been lucky enough to join Jordan on a few of his events and challenges, including this 33 in 33 challenge. Now, as you're about to hear, I actually got the number of marathons wrong in the first half of the chat. I mentioned 31, but yes, he has indeed ran 33 full marathons in 33 consecutive days. So in this chat, Jordan provides an awesome overview of his experience during the challenge, his why behind doing it, and some of the biggest lessons that he learned. We also discuss how social connection is so important and prevalent in the running community, and how challenges like this can have such a big impact on bringing like-minded people together. So if you find this episode valuable, don't hesitate to drop it a 5-star rating, share it with a mate, or post it up on your Instagram story and tag the Flow Performance Podcast. So get ready to be inspired with this week's chat. What's the go with running 33 marathons in 33 days with Jordan Chen?
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Alrighty, welcome back to the Flow Performance Podcast. My name is Ricky Dan, founder of Flow Nutrition, and today we are out at Elevation Gym with the one and only Jordan Chen. Jords, thanks for being here, mate.
Thanks again for having me.
No worries at all. So today's training / let's go challenges related question is, what's the go with running 31 marathons in 31 days? Now, that's a pretty crazy question when you think about it. But before we dive in, just a little bit of context and a quick backstory as to why this little episode is so special to me. Firstly, during this challenge is when we met for the first time. I think I met you on day, it was probably 2 or 3, really early on in your challenge. And I'd been following you for a little while on social media, and I was going on my own run, just like a little 10K run or something, and I crossed you at about the Burleigh Pav. And I'm not one to sort of stop and say hi to strangers or whatever, but for some reason I did. I just said, hey mate, love your work. Best of luck for the remainder of the challenge. And you turned around to me and pretty much said, thanks mate, come and join me tomorrow. And I was like, oh shit, didn't really consider that as an option. But anyway, I think I messaged you that night, and then I rocked up the next day and ran a full marathon with you. And I just remember so clearly the chats we were having were just so freaking cool. And, you know, you introduced me to, I think maybe Jansen first, and we had some really cool chats. I then met, I think, Vanessa, and then that led into meeting some of the Salt Run Club crew, which then led on to some Hedges crew. And I was just thinking back to that experience, and my whole network of friends on the Gold Coast has essentially been derived from you and that experience. So I just wanted to highlight sort of how amazing the social connection part of challenges like that actually is, because I don't know where I'd be without the support from all these other people in my own challenges. So yeah, first, thank you so much for running 31 marathons in 31 days. And my first question is probably the most rational question. Why'd you do it?
Good question. I mean,
Is it a simple answer or is it?
yeah, no, it's a similar. I think it's touching back on what you said around that social connection. That's such a big thing for us around, movement and running, and coming out of the years where everything was like locked down and everything like that. Is it's nice to just reach out to someone and have that common theme. And yeah, we did have some awesome chats, and I was super grateful for that, especially those couple of days where it was a little challenging. You joined me on the bike and stuff, and I was in my own head and it was all new to me what was happening. But like, you've been quite a good pivotal part of being able to share that journey with. And coming back to your question on why I did it, my race was cancelled that year, so it was actually what I was training for, and I'd watch guys run across Australia and watch guys run across America and all these kind of things. I kind of wanted to get an insight of what that felt like, so I really wanted to put myself, and yeah, they were marathons. They were 42.2 Ks every day. It was more the fact that I would like to just get a sense of how that felt, and I remember calling my mum on day 3. And, I don't swear to her very often, but I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I was like, what am I doing? I got these blisters on my feet. And I was like, what did I sign up for? And, it's nice when you have those kind of people around you just to, we talk about before of doing hard things. I definitely had the capacity to do it. But I was more in my head at this stage. So I really needed to go through that to just unlock a few things that, I was looking for in my own journey. And, I got to meet you along the way and so many other amazing people. And I thought, you know what, like, I'd love to just do a marathon every day for 30 days. And then it just happened that the Gold Coast Marathon was on the 3rd of July that year. So I added another 3, right?
Oh, 33.
Yeah,
Oh, mate.
That's all right. No, it's all good.
Short,
but it was, I wanted to do the month.
Yeah, 33.
And I thought, well, I'm just going to tap out after a month. And then someone said, why don't you just finish on the Gold Coast Marathon? And I did, and it was more of a self-fulfilling journey of going through some, hard things in my own head at the time. And to be honest, without people like yourself and all these amazing people that jumped in, I couldn't have done it without having some people there and being able to talk with them. And, we didn't destroy ourselves every day. We just ran for 4 or 5 hours every day. We stopped and got muffins, and it created like a bit of a morning thing for some people to be like, oh, I'll jump in for 40 Ks in the morning. And I was like, what, 40 Ks? They're like, yeah, well, when else are we going to get a chance to do it? So everyone was like running, PBs and large distances, and people that had never ran before. And there was one of Vince's mates rolled up in like some basketball shorts.
I was there that day, that morning.
Yeah.
I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
So I was just, watching that. All that stuff was good, laughing, respectfully laughing of like, I needed that kind of energy to push through because I was in my head a fair bit. So it was nice having those different characters around. Had some very strange characters. I say that respectfully, but people that were kind of asking how I was feeling, and in my head, I was kind of like, how do you think I'm feeling?
Yeah.
I don't feel that great. Like, my legs don't work and things are like starting to shut down. But, I was also like very grateful that you have people there to just chat with, because it does take a lot out of your mind. And I'm a big believer in when you go through those kind of hard things, you need that kind of shift, because it's very difficult unless you're strong through your head, which, a lot of people are, but they still rely on something external to come in and just shift their way of thinking.
Yeah, the power of people. That's because I always tell people this, the most fulfilling and rewarding thing I've ever done was my piddly little 7 marathons in 7 days. Once again, comparison.
Which is not little.
Comparison is a thief of joy. Well, but for me, yeah, that's huge. But the most rewarding thing was I think there was like 15 people that did their longest ever runs, including 2 people did their first marathons. So I had 2 people do full marathons on 2 of my 7 days. I couldn't even count the amount of people who did their first half marathons ever. And being a part of that, like, I don't remember anything about
me or my runs or my times or anything. All I remember is like their stoke from like completing that. And to date, like nothing has come to that feeling of, man, you have helped these people, even if, yeah, I don't know what capacity, but just being a part of that. And I think it's because a lot of the time, you're somewhat inspiring other people's behaviors through posting positive things and stuff, but actually being there and seeing it is just so powerful, and that's what sort of stuck with me. Did you sort of get similar feelings around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, as you said, it's just feeding off each other's energy, which is big for us. And we talk about social parts and relationships. That's how you really thrive. Like, your human connection is how you really, get solid fulfillment. And it's, as you said, running with someone that's ran their longest distance, or never thought that they could run 10Ks, and suddenly they've gone from 8Ks to 10Ks. And I'm like, you deserve to give yourself a pat on the back. Like, it's amazing what you've just done, because so many people can't do that. So, just be proud of what you've done. More people just need to be proud of what they've done. As I said, don't compare yourself to others. Just be proud of what you've done. If you've ran 10Ks, it's a hell of an achievement. You've just ran for an hour. You're better than 90% of the population.
That is such an important message, because the amount of times people say to me, like, oh, but compared to what you've done or something, it's nothing. Like, I hate hearing that. So for anyone that said that, just like erase that out of your vocab. Just think, yeah, comparison's funny, especially in running. But I think, yeah, being proud of your own achievements, and that's what I've probably learned to do better as well, because I played into that a lot when I was starting out running. I'd always compare, but just being proud of your journey, the trajectory that you're on, that is so important, I think, regardless of whether that's getting off the couch and walking 1K. It's just that trajectory, not about where you're at on that graph. Just the direction you're going in is super important. A couple of logistical questions I have, because I really struggled to get in enough calories when I was bloody doing those 7 in 7, and I was a bit ambitious. I thought I'd be able to get some work done after those marathons each day, but I was Captain Cooked. There was nothing going on in my head. You were still working, right, during that month? What were your... Let's just start with like immediate recovery after. So knowing you've just run a marathon, let's say you started at 4, finished at like 8, you've got a day's work ahead of you. What were you doing straight after?
Yeah, it's actually a really good point. And I think people need to understand that, when you go through these challenges, there are people out there that do all this stuff and they still go to work all day. And, I like that you've actually touched on that, because my immediate recovery, as you know about nutrition, was to actually have nutrition whilst I was going. So I wasn't finishing on an empty stomach. I stopped and we did Fox's Pantry a few times, which is, like having those muffins, and it was a nice way to break everything up. But it was a key strategy to be like, I'm not finishing on an empty stomach. So I would make my oats the night before, and I would make 2 bowls instead of 1. I normally just soak my oats overnight, wild blueberries, figs, dates, nuts, whatever you want in there. Some protein powder a few times a year. I normally cycle in and out of protein powders, so I'm not reliant on it. But it's also, in this, I had to be super prepared, because I didn't have the time to like stuff around and meet people afterwards for coffee, because my bandwidth in the morning was really tapped out. So I made a decision at night to make my bowls that was set there, and then I didn't have to worry about it. As soon as I finished, bang, just straight in. I got good nutrients in, and then I would head to P3, and I would actually do all my recovery boots whilst I was doing my morning work. I'd have my laptop there, and I was just being productive while I was doing it. And to be honest, that wasn't always the case, because some mornings I just needed to have a nap. So I just did, listening to your body. And another thing was I really communicated to people around me, especially in the business world, of what I was doing, because it allowed them to understand that, I may not always be available. And I think this is such a big thing of just trying to communicate it out and just say, like, this, it's just a month. I'm good. Like, just if I am a little late to replying, like, I'll get back to you.
I remember we had a chat about that one day, how you're so disciplined with even having boundaries as to when you would reply to things, because I'm shocking at that. If I'm going to bed at 9 or 8, I might just check my emails and go, oh shit, like, and I'll reply to it. Whereas like I think you have really good boundaries as to be like, this is when that's going to happen, and I'm not going to do anything outside of that. So that obviously played a big part as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that is, again, just comes down to communication. Key people around you that, rely on you, rely on us, rely on, you rely on your partners and your business partners and everyone around you. Just communicate to them what you're doing, because they may not understand, and that's okay. They don't need to, but just give them a bit of an insight so that they can get an understanding of like, okay, if he's not replying, he will, at some stage.
I'm super interested to know. So we talk a lot about like nailing the basics with Flow Nutrition, all about just like sleep, hydration, nutrition, key pillars. You're probably the one person that I know that not only nails the basics, but you also nail the 1%ers. Because I think, a lot of people skip straight to the 1%ers and forget those foundations. So I'm really keen to know what your basics are, what your foundations are, and then what are those 1%ers that you do to just put the icing on the cake. Because I think you optimize everything about your life, even recovery. So what were your key sort of pillars for recovery with 33 marathons in a month?
Yeah, sleep's the lighthouse, right? Absolute lighthouse. Like I prioritize sleep over anything. That includes having softer conversations at night, including with people that you're close with, because, I believe like a good day happens the night before. And in saying that, it's not always perfect, like I don't always get the best sleep, but I set myself up to have the best sleep that I possibly can. I still go through all the stresses of life, and, things happen and things don't happen, and hard stuff happens and things don't go your way. So it's like, what can I possibly do to be good for the next day, right? So that always happens around sleep. So night before, so I generally don't eat too much after like 5 p.m. So I really have a window to try and get as many calories.
Especially when you're just trying to replenish a shit ton of calories, like that's a...
Yes, it was quite challenging. So I was finding I was a little hungry, and if I did needed to eat, I just did. Like I know I've got my rules in place, but I know that something like this, I have to be a little bit more flexible. Listen to my body. So I was finding I was having like a couple extra pieces of like sourdough and some avocado just before I go to bed. I'd have some really soft potatoes some nights and turmeric and all that kind of stuff. So I think getting back to like those 1%ers, that's really where the magic happens. But people don't want to see all that. They just want all the quick fixes, hear that. So sleep, the quality of the water that we drink, also the foods that we eat, they're like the relationships that we have. I'm very much into that kind of stuff, because health isn't just one thing. It's like all the pillars put together, and people are just so focused on one thing. It's like, all right, get your sleep right, and you'll recover better if you sleep better, and if you eat better, and you'll think better. And like it's those mini micro choices all day are so big for me in my days, that I constantly think of, if I'm going to go out for lunch, where am I going to go? Because I know that it's going to affect me in the afternoon. And, there's times where you just need to be like, put it all aside and be like, all right, whatever. And that's okay. I don't feel guilty around that. But, 90% of the time, it's just solid. I'm organized. I have stuff there. There's days where things don't go my way as well. And I'm just, I just go with the flow, right? Rather than trying to resist it. Because as much as it's good to be organized and have all that there, when things don't go your way or stuff happens or you need to adjust, you just go with it. Like, honestly, you just go with it. And that's...
Adapt.
Yeah, it's just
so important. And I feel like when people try to implement a new behavior or a big program, or they're chasing a big goal, they don't have that skill to adapt. They make their plan and think, if I don't stick to this 100%, it's a failure. Whereas for me, the people that are successful are the ones that don't stick to the plan, but they're able to adapt. So if they're going to travel all of a sudden, oh no, my meal prep for the week, I can't do that when I'm flying to Sydney or Melbourne. And so then they go and eat shit for a week and then come home. And I think that is such a big component of it, is being able to adapt, because life happens regardless of how structured you think your life is. I think that is a very underrated skill. Yeah.
It's true. And again, life happens. So you just adapt to it.
Yeah. And I just want to touch very quickly on, so P3, big part of your life for many reasons, but it also served as a very big part of you completing that challenge. What was sort of the foundations of what you were doing at P3? What were your main sort of recovery protocols there?
Yeah, I mean, that's really good to touch on, because I couldn't get the ice bath at all. I was so inflamed.
Interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Just too painful?
Yeah, it was very... I enjoy my ice baths, right? It's a very non-invasive way to just get in and clean the head and work on your breath and be present. I was finding it very, very difficult at the start, so I made the decision after the third day to just do warm pools, and it was such a good thing, if you look at the studies and you look at all the stuff, there's a reason why that is, right? You shouldn't be, you can use the cold, for example, what you need to do, but it's just warm was where it was at. I did use the hyperbaric chamber, which was great, and even the guys down at Alchemy in Melbourne, they were...
You were swearing by that. I remember some of the mornings we rocked up to the runs, and you were like, I feel like a new man. I feel fresh. Is that common? How often were you getting in there?
Yeah, I was getting in every day when I was...
Every day.
Just having a nap in there.
How long actually were those...
I mean, we do our sessions over an hour, but sometimes people don't turn up, so you jump in. Sometimes I was in there for 2 hours. So, I was using the compression garments, using the rollers. Just, again, 1%ers. There's so little in the scheme of things, but they did help me get over the line. I still looked after my main pillars first, and then used that recovery to really, just get through it. But yeah, that was my kind of my practice.
Love that. Shout out to P3. What a bunch of bloody legends. Mate, that is awesome. We could talk about this all bloody day, but that'll have to wrap up this little episode here. Thank you so much, mate, for that insight. Very valuable. But yeah, if anyone else has any further questions, once again, feel free to hit us up at Flow Nutrition, or hit George up on Instagram. He's always happy to have a chat. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next week to answer more of your questions. Thanks, George.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Flow Performance Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the chat and found loads of value that you can use to fuel more flow state in your life. If you did enjoy the content and want to support the podcast, don't forget to give it a 5-star rating, leave a review, or even better, share it to a mate, post it up on your Instagram story, and tag Flow Performance Podcast. We really do appreciate any support in getting this content out into the world. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will catch you again next week.